Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Exhuming the X-Files. Hit that like and subscribe to hear a new episode every Friday here on Outpost Unknown. I'm Matthew. He's Jeremy.
Hello, hello.
Are you about to drink from some dirty-ass toilets to stay young?
Yup.
This episode is Kalm. And I mentioned on last week's episode, I remember this one from my childhood. Did you have any memories specifically of this episode?
Not one.
Really?
Nope.
Okay. This was one that really stood out to me as a kid, and I think it obviously was the aging component to it, but I also think that it looked really cool to me. The interiors of the submarine and all of that stuff. So this is one that stuck with me. We'll see if it held up all these years later. Jeremy, what happens here? Where do we start this episode?
You have a bunch of sailors up on some sort of U.S. naval ship, and they're all abandoning ship except for the captain. He's like, "This is mutiny!" And they're like, "We're just gonna fucking leave." He draws down on one of them, but doesn't have the guts to shoot him. They get off the boat into a dinghy or whatever, and they just leave the captain sitting alone on this naval ship. Then it cuts to night. The same Canadian fisherman who had found the UFO from 3 episodes ago saw it crash into him. I'm pretty sure it's the same guys. Looks like the same
Probably
boat.
is. They're in the right
Um,
place at the right time.
they see, or they get a ping on their radar that there's a boat out there in the water. They're like, "We almost ran into these boys," and they shine a light on them, and you just see it's a wooden dinghy full of survivors that looks like it was from the Titanic. They don't use wooden boats like that on naval ships, but whatever. They throw a line to them, and you see kind of these like creaky old guy hands pulling the rope in.
Yeah.
Once they get the light on them, all of the dudes that were 19 to 28 years old, young sailors, are all like 80 years old, just looking real bad. I call it cheesification, and I'll tell you why later on.
So, for full disclosure, the aging effects in this episode don't hold up the best.
No, I'm sure they looked fine on 480p. In high definition 2K, 4K, the makeup looks fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's bad. But I love this prologue, and I'll tell you why. This is one of the most effective types of prologues that the X-Files can do, where it sets up a mystery where your immediate reaction after it's over is like, how the hell did this happen? And I want to know what's going on. Like when all these like young naval cadets or whatever are like, we're getting out of here. We don't want to become like them. And you're sitting and thinking like, well, what's going on the ship? Like, what is going on that all of these like really disciplined military Navy men would just leave? And then when you see like they're all old and aged and everything, it's like, oh, cool. Like this one really sparked my imagination as a kid. I really liked the prologue.
So Mulder hears that a bunch of or Navy guys, like a boat had been abandoned. I can't even remember why he found out about this because nobody really important told him. But he ends up getting this medical. Like they won't let me see these sailors that came in off of this abandoned ship. But you have a medical degree, so I found these credentials somewhere, like laying in a
It's an old
parking lot.
code, sir, but it checks out.
Well, it wasn't because they like Scully does not want to be there to do this for him. You could tell
Yeah.
that she's like, I don't want to do this, Mulder, but he just hands her the credentials and walks off. She's like,
He's like
oh,
he's like he's like, please do this for me, and I'll meet you back at the office when you're done.
and then walks off. She goes in, sees or picks up the medical chart, goes in to like look at this guy, and just sees a 28-year-old laying in a bed that looks like terrible makeup job, but looks like he's ancient. She's like, how is this possible? And then the actual like physician in charge at this naval hospital shows up, and she's like, who are you? These credentials are obviously fake. So
Scully doesn't even tell her who she is. She's just like, I'm a
yeah,
medical doctor. She doesn't say I'm an FBI agent or anything. She just says, I'm a medical doctor. Give me all of the stuff.
yeah.
This woman is rightly like, get the fuck out.
Show me your credentials. And it's like, this credential is not even real. Where the hell did you get this from? It's like, wow, Mulder, you found a fake badge, like, and just gave it to your partner and said, "All right, you do this. I
Well,
will leave."
well, think about it. Mulder literally just had Scully commit a crime for him
Mhm.
because you can't just give like fake credentials and walk in and start demanding medical reports of people and treating them and whatnot. That's a crime.
Why didn't he do it? Why didn't he just fucking do it himself?
No, he says that they wouldn't let him in. Like he says, "Hey, they won't let me in, but I found these credentials. They'll let someone in with a medical background get in." That's why he was trying to convince her, only because she had medical credentials and he did not.
Yeah, but that's what he said. But when she went in with like a fake badge that he found, and they immediately, like the person in charge, immediately saw through it. So why didn't he just walk in with the fake badge? He would have
You can send
gotten
an
as
email.
far.
You can send an email to Howard Gordon and Alex Ganza, the writers of this episode.
Excuse
Voodoo.
me, excuse me, gentlemen. I don't. Oh fuck. So anyway, that happens, but Scully just rolls with it. Um, what is it? Oh, and then based off of that information, based off of seeing a super aged guy, they just immediately get the fundage to travel to Norway and charter a fishing boat.
They just book a ticket to Norway and they do not tell Skinner. They make a point. Mulder's like, I'm not going to tell Skinner until like I'm back with my report or some shit like that. But you missed the most important thing. They talk about the Philadelphia
Oh,
experiment, the
yeah.
USS Eldridge in this part. And this is another thing that I remember vividly as a kid because I know you and I would talk about the Philadelphia experiment. And do you remember what basically that was? You want to tell the listeners out there if they're unfamiliar, like what the Philadelphia experiment was?
Supposedly, they stuck, or the U.S. Navy stuck some electromagnetic generator, some new tech that they were experimenting on a boat called the USS Eldridge. Fired it up. It started getting and they wanted to do it so that they could make this boat invisible to radar and
Mhm.
U-boat sonars, things of that nature, by generating this massive field of electricity on the boat itself. What ended up happening is this green fog kind of rolled in around the boat, and then the boat completely vanished and reappeared like an hour and a half south off of the coast of Virginia, and then disappeared again and reappeared in the harbor. Only when it reappeared in the harbor, uh, about half the crew was missing. There was dudes walking around on board that had just been driven completely fucking mad. There were sailors hanging out, like halfway stuck inside of bulkheads on the ship,
Yeah.
hanging halfway out, screaming and stuff like that. Like, it was a pretty gnarly story.
I loved the Philadelphia experiment story
Yeah.
when I was a kid. Absolutely loved it. And so when this episode popped up and Mulder's talking about it, it makes you, as a viewer, it's like, oh, cool. They're talking about something I know about. And I really, really love that.
I love that they started that way, and I wish they would have continued down that road instead of just invoking something that I've always been nerdy about all my life, and
Yeah.
then just using the name in order to. Anyway, so off of that, yeah, they find that there was this, basically, like off the coast of Norway. There's this Bermuda Triangle. All these different ships have weird stories about passing through this area, about lights underneath the ocean and stuff like that. Though none of the stories really tied together, other than they had been in that area,
Yeah.
and that's where they want to charter this fishing boat out of Norway. They get to Norway. They go to like a local bar that's just full of Norwegian pirates and just start asking people. But they're all afraid of it. You know, they've all heard the tales of this particular area. None of them will go, except for this one American guy who used to, basically, he was a shrimp boat captain or something.
Do
And
you do you recognize who the boat captain is?
I,
And I'm going to be
I've
very disappointed if you don't.
I've seen his face before, but I do not remember the man's name.
It's Hack Scudder from Carnival.
Oh my god!
Yes, it's Scudder.
Yeah, hell yeah!
Yeah.
And
And
I
then
did
we
write.
get another Carnival alum in the next episode. It's
Yep.
like back to back Carnival stuff. So yeah, Hack Scudder is the boat captain.
And he was so good in this episode, and it
Yeah.
was his entire performance cheapened by how bad rubbing him up against David Duchovny was. Like, Hack wanted to act in this episode, and his energy was just met with Mulder being bored and old the whole episode. It was so it
I'm
made
gonna
his performance just it was
I'm
unbelievable.
gonna disagree with you. I like this episode a lot, and I still like it. I think that I think that was a nice dichotomy where Mulder is just boring because as we get old, we get more and more boring and uh, lackadaisical and whatnot. I actually really like that. I like that component.
I think that they brought this guy. I think that guy can act. I think it was like an opportunity for Mulder to have his Beyond the Sea moment with a real actor
Mm.
who can bounce. They can feed off of each other as actors do. But when they were together, it's like one guy was acting his ass off and Mulder. Just but so he takes him out into the sea. And while we're at it, for some reason, the U.S. Navy is not looking for one of their destroyers that basically vanished off the coast of Norway. Like, that's Russian water territory. World War III, like, starting incidences if they just decided to torpedo one of our boats.
Yeah.
Nobody's fucking looking for them. I remember
Mulder
them.
is. Yeah, Mulder
Yeah.
gets there before like the US military.
And they were there for 18, didn't they say 18 days?
It was quite a long time. I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact, but yeah, it's long.
Yeah. They don't, like, we've been here suffering these effects for 18 days. And it's like,
Yeah, because
anyway.
because they find the dude. There's that one dude that's still alive. So I don't know if that guy spoke when they were able to see, because they mentioned that all the other people on the dinghy died. There was only that one dude at the beginning that Mulder was trying to get Scully to talk to that was still alive. But you would think that he would have said something. Oh, the ship is still there. Everybody is like aging at a really fast rate, but maybe the military, maybe he couldn't speak in the military, just thought the thing sank or something, but they'd still look for it, right?
Yeah, no, there would be absolutely. There would be guys all over the place until they located it and made sure that any sensitive equipment and or nuclear material that was on that ship was off that ship. Like, they have to do those things. But
Not in this universe.
no, no, fuck that boat. So but not until it's convenient to be rescued. But anyway, the fishing trawler almost runs into the boat because they see it on radar and then it disappears off radar, and they kind of get back to the Philadelphia experiment thing, like, oh, that's cool for just a second,
Hmm.
and then they just never ever bring it up again. Runs the boat into it, runs the fishing trawler into it. They get on the boat, and then all of a sudden somebody steals their boat and bounces. And that's not clear. Like, does this guy, this American captain, did his crew just chicken shit out and just leave with the boat? That wasn't
Yeah,
clear.
it's a little confusing. I was like, well, who stole the boat?
But
Yeah, it's weird.
but then his seammate, the fucking Jose, the Latino Norwegian guy, he's not a Norwegian guy.
Jose, the Norwegian sailor.
Yep. Um, there's a kid that's with him that never has a speaking line, and they end up finding him like in the dark inside of this aging, rusting hulk of a boat that was apparently commissioned in as recently as 1991, but looks like it's been rusting for the last 50 years. And even when they scrape like a little bit of rust off of it, it immediately starts rusting over even faster. So there's something weird going on with this boat. They find this kid after they hear like a scream or something. They find Jose, uh, immediately diagnose him with that he had died of a skull fracture, even though they only have flashlights and they don't really touch the body.
Well, Scully touches that one body of that dude, and his whole hand breaks off.
Oh
Like
yeah,
fell
yeah. They
apart to
find
touch.
they find the cheesification. So they find a bunch of sailors like in their bunks. While they're finding these bodies while Jose is fucking off somewhere else, and there's all of these ancient mummies that just have all of these salt crystals on them, and they actually use the word salt, but like they're turning into a pillar of salt.
Yeah.
But it just looks like they have a little bit of Parmesan cheese like sprinkled over their hands and their faces, like a good amount that you would want to put on your pasta. And I just started calling it the cheesification of dude. So Jose dies. They end up running into this Norwegian pirate guy and holding or like handcuffing him or tying him to something.
Yeah, the thing about him is he's not aging, and Mulder notices it immediately because the Scudder is like, he's just a low down, horrible whaler. Everybody knows him. We all hate him. Blah blah blah. And Mulder's like, hey, don't do anything to him. He's not aging, and we got to find out why.
Hmm. Oh yeah, because they did find the captain of the ship who is hiding out in the refrigerator with
With a
a
bottle of Jim
Jim
Dandies.
Daniels. Danny's
Jim Dandies is what it says.
can only read that in high def, I'm sure. He tells the story, like he confirms that yeah, everybody aged until they died, and then he himself dies. Uh, the what is it? The American captain guy is kind of rubbing Mulder wrong. He wants to basically kill the pirate,
Yeah.
and he's not.
Scudder does not trust anything going on here. Scudder wants to kill the pirate, and Mulder and Scully want to keep the pirate alive in order to find out why he's not aging like everybody else is.
Um, they all took a nap, and then all of a sudden woke up, and everybody was about 20 to 40 years older.
Yeah, and that was a cool shot too. How they did it. Now, I'm coloring this my positive reception to this episode based on the fact that the aging makeup was done in 1994 on, like you said, a 4:3 television with 480p. The makeup does not look good. It does not look good today's day and age, but I love the idea of it, and I can get past the kind of hokiness of it because I think the more and more it progresses, the more and more it still gets the message across to the audience of what it's trying to do. And I like that when Mulder's like in shadow and he leans forward and you see his face is all old and Scully looks like some old wench. I like that. It's a good moment.
It,
Just agree with me.
yeah,
You know you want to.
yeah, I completely agree with you. It's actually one of the best things that has happened in X Files to date. But the what is it? At some point, Mulder like wants to leave. He stands up and Scully says, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I don't know, but I gotta go somewhere." Or he said, "I can't even remember what he said." He
I don't
stood up
remember.
and said some shit about
I remember
where
Scully
you
telling
going?
about free radicals. Like, hey, we're aging because of free radicals in our system. And the boat is crossing over like some sort of metal meteorite or some shit that's at
Yeah,
the
they're
bottom.
creating a giant battery or something, and they're all
Yeah, and
being
it's
exposed to it. And yeah, okay, whatever. But then they start following a pipe out of nowhere.
mm,
But it's this yellow piss pipe
yeah, it's
that
the only
doesn't.
one. It's the only one that's not corroding.
They follow it all the way to the source, and they end up finding like where the pirate Bjorgensen had been camping with all of his pirate boys, and they had been drinking out of they keep saying the sewage system, and you
Yeah.
can see it dripping, and it's like kind of cloudy. Like, are they drinking just the waste toilet water?
Look, man, you got to do what you got to do in a situation like
They
that.
didn't. They didn't know. They were so. Anyway, they find out that if you don't drink the contaminated water that's everywhere else, if you just drink it out of the toilets, like you won't age. You actually start
Yeah.
de-aging, which the captain like or the pirate tells him, if you let me go, I'll tell you what the secret of not aging is,
Yeah.
and ends up killing him for it, and has this weird scene where you see this bloody pirate just dead, while Captain America is just slurping out of the toilet.
Yeah, so I love that scene between Scudder and the pirate because Scudder's basically telling this pilot, like, why would I even trust you? Like you're just a fucking you kill whales. You're the lowest of the low when it comes to humanity. Why would I do anything to it? And the guy's like, yeah, I can tell you the secret of how I'm, not doing it. I was actually really surprised when they showed the pirate just dead in the next scene and Scudder just straight up murdered him. I actually like that because I think it subverted my expectations a little bit. And I like the fact that Scudder is essentially like going to be like he's like the what is it, Smaug from Lord of the Rings, whatever. He's like gonna hoard the Hobbit to hoard all the gold. He's gonna hoard all of the water at this point. He's just going like fucking nuts. He's thinking about himself, and I like that. I thought that was really really interesting.
I mean, yeah,
Counterpoint.
you needed to have some threat, some immediate threat, because they were just slowly aging into death. But
Well, that is a threat in and of itself.
Scully at some point before. No, was it after? Yeah, it was after he had killed the pirate guy and was now aware that the water was what was saving him. Scully says, "I'm going to need a blood and urine sample from both of you." What? Like you're on a boat. Everything is rusting. Everything except for the poop outflow pipe is. Where are you going to piss? What are
Okay.
you going to?
Mulder tells her, like Mulder finds out, like, hey, there's something in the water, right? And they try to come up with like they're on the clock here. They're getting older and older and older, and they have to try to do something to find out what is going on. And hey, I don't blame her for saying, give me a
What's she
blood,
gonna?
urine, give me a semen sample, give me everything that you got,
What's
so
she gonna do with it? They're gonna piss in a cup, and she's gonna hold a cup up to a flashlight and be like, "Yep, that's piss."
free radicals, man. Free radicals. I
Uh,
don't blame Scully. I don't blame her for trying.
well, okay, so she had a lab with her that she could test blood and piss samples that she didn't tell anybody about, and also wasn't aging.
Well, no,
But she just
there's a lab in the ship.
that would be
And,
corroding like everything else in the ship.
you know, you don't have to hit me with logic bombs. I'm just just telling you here.
Don't make me conjure up voodoo as the reason here, because
Glass. Okay, okay. What does she really need, Jeremy? She needs some beakers. The beakers are going to be fine. They're not going to corrode. She needs. What else does she need? She needs beakers and
probably a centrifuge, probably a microscope, probably like different various like litmus paper plus other things to detect what is in the urine and the blood. It's
yeah.
like,
Time to move on. Let's move on to the next part.
oh god, I don't think there's a few lines in my notes where I couldn't get over this whole lab thing. Um, they go back down to where the toilet empties out, and the Scudder locks himself inside there. They can't get to him, so they just have to figure out alternatives for drinking water. So, like, Scully finds a snow globe in a locker she had no reason to be looking at or into in the first place.
No, she's searching the entire ship for any water. There's a reason
She
she's looking through there.
she started at that locker to find the snow globe. She's not. She goes to the kitchen next. She finds a tin of sardines that has like sardine water in it, which I love
Oh.
sardines, but I'm not going to drink that water.
I love that shot though, where it's like an extreme close up on Scully's old ass eyes and her face, and she's just squeezing every little drop of this sardine juice into this. I'm just like, this looks cool. This looks. I mean, it just looks cool. This episode looks awesome.
Yeah, I'll give it that. Um, the whole eventually, like, they can't do anything about the guy that locked himself in with all the rest of the good water and drained all the toilets. But eventually, the exterior hull corrodes so much that it just floods that area and drowns him. So fuck that guy, I guess. But
Rest in peace, Axe Cutter.
um,
She finds lemon juice too. Don't forget about that. That's important.
why?
Why is it important? Because she mixes it with the anchovy juice.
Mm. So they apparently they stay hydrated enough. I wrote down a line right before the end is this shit had nothing to do with the Philadelphia experiment. I was so disappointed by that point. And then they get rescued at the very end. The Navy finally shows up, goes directly to where they are at or in the ship, and they get them back to close enough to civilization to treat them. Scully had written down a bunch of notes about what was going on. They were being
Yeah.
treated by the very same doctor that had cock blocked her or Scully earlier in the episode. Um, they try to figure out what's going on with the boat and said that the boat had sunk 1 hour after they had got rescued.
Yeah.
So I wrote that losing the evidence in water strikes again.
Now, I do like the moment before this because they establish that Mulder is aging faster than Scully. And their reasoning for that is because he was dehydrated, apparently, before he got onto the boat. I don't remember him even mentioning dehydration, honestly, but Scully's like, well, you were dehydrated. That's probably why you're going faster. And Mulder is trying to get Scully to drink the lemon sardine snow globe water. There's like a whole jar of it. So she goes through this whole thing to concoct this weird Barnharder esque drink. She's trying to get it to Mulder, and Mulder will not drink it. And I wrote down where he tells her like, women have more fatty tissue and they live longer than men, so you should drink it. And then when the hole cracks, all that work Scully did went for naught because the concoction literally falls and breaks on the ground right after that. But I did like the tender moment where Mulder is trying to let her survive and keep her alive longer, and he's willing to die for her. I like that.
Yeah, all right. I mean,
He also says the service on this ship is terrible, so he does not lose his like sense of humor at the very end either.
so but they get to live, and then a week later they're doing some other shit.
Yeah, they magically de-age back
Mhm.
to back to the age they were apparently. They don't do a Benjamin Button and go all the way back. One other thing I had on my notes here, which I think is an important moment in this episode, is when Mulder is like staring death in the face, and he mentions like we had this. It's not our time. We had so much more stuff left to do. He's like being very introspective about his impending doom, and he didn't want to die like this and stuff. And Scully says something interesting. She goes all the way back to sort of like her death when it kind of occurred. And she tells Mulder, like, we have nothing to fear when it's over. Like, I can tell you that for certainty. We have nothing to fear when it's over. Was it Last Breath or something of that episode where she's on the boat, right? And she's kind of like floating off. So I liked that callback as well for both of them. But um, I love this episode. I think this episode is great. So I think that this episode is one that it sparked my imagination when I was a kid. I watched it. Other than the really bad makeup effects now, the de aging makeup, I still think it really works with the visuals. And yeah, do I have to suspend my disbelief with Scully making a makeshift laboratory and experimenting on things? Yeah, but I also have to suspend my disbelief for a turd man in the sewers going around, so I'm okay with it. I can get past that. But I still visually, I think it looks good. I think it has an awesome opening hook. I love the fact that both of our heroes are put in peril and have to face their own deaths and what that means. And I think Scudder was awesome in this. He was a really good sort of bad guy villain throughout the whole thing, and I really like this episode. It's really, it still works for me. Counterpoint to you, good sir.
I, it was a very, it seemed, or compared to what we've watched recently, a very inexpensive episode. And they, from a technical perspective, they made a lot out of a little. It's not one of those isolation episodes where it's not, nobody else is really involved in the majority of the filming. And so when you get stuff like that, you get back to an episode of like Ice, where, or an episode of Beyond the Sea, where you lean on the actors' talent with each other in order to prop up a lot of what's going on. And it's just, I don't think that the episode is bad. I see a lot of the things that you really liked about it. I just hate that they brought in a quality actor like Scudder, and everything he tried to do was just kind of flattened by how meh David Duchovny's performance in this episode was. It just, he was trying to get a rise out of him in order to elevate everybody's acting, and it just kind of, just didn't work.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair critique. I think that, yeah, some of these X Files episodes, David Duchovny feels like he's kind of sleepwalking through. Where maybe he didn't like the script or he wasn't into this particular thing, and he just kind of like, all right, I'm showing up here, I'll get my paycheck and move on. But yeah, fun facts about this episode. Prior to this episode being produced, the Canadian Forces had granted permission for the show to use HMCS Mackenzie, a decommissioned destroyer, for the production of Colony and Endgame. Series creator Chris Carter, wanting to take full advantage of this rare opportunity, asked Howard Gordon to write another episode that could also be filmed on the ship. So this was, like, to your point, is like, we have access to this amazing location. We just have to write something. And we have done that in our own film career.
We
We have
sure have.
access to a theater. Fucking let's write something and film in it. So I connect to Chris Carter on that. I would absolutely want to do something on this cool ship if I had access to it. It was initially believed that by using the same set for 3 episodes, the production crew would be given something of a break. Before the script for Dodcom was finished, Carter even expressed his belief that this episode would provide everyone with a quote great rest unquote. Unfortunately, when the crew began using the ship, a number of problems set in. For one thing, the temperature dropped substantially, making the entire filming process uncomfortable for both the cast and crew. The close quarters of the ship also meant that production was relatively cramped. Finally, the makeup applied to Duchovny and Anderson took hours each day to apply, resulting in substantial delays. Director Rob Bowman later called Dodd Calm, quote, the episode from hell, unquote, due to these issues. When the set was completed, the cast and crew of Dodcom reportedly found it amazing. Duchovny was particularly pleased because it was only a short distance away from where he was living at the time. The producers subsequently decided to find possible locations closer to where the main stars were living in order to ease future filming. The sailor in the locker, whom Mulder and Scully find, is holding what looks like a Jack Daniels Old Number 7 Tennessee whiskey bottle. The label actually says Jim Dandy's Old Number 2 Kentucky whiskey, which was also used in the movie Wolf Cop in 2014. Dod calm means dead calm in Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish. And Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny hated the old age makeup. An outtake exists with Scully muttering, Howard Gordon, you're a dead man, referring to the writer of the episode who concocted the idea of an aging Mulder and Scully. So maybe that lends credence to your sort of idea there that David Duchovny just seemed not interested in this. He was probably just pissed off at all the old man makeup he had to wear during the whole thing. So, so yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Dodd Calm. I liked it. Jeremy thought it was all right. I think it was a good change of pace from the alien stuff that we've been seeing previously. So I maybe that also helped me really enjoy this episode a little bit more. I was like, oh, finally 3 episodes, 4 episodes in, no aliens, so that's good. But next week we are going to be talking about another episode that I remember vividly from when I was a child, and I think this is considered, just based on like all-time top 10 lists I've seen from the X-Files, one of the greatest or most well-regarded episodes of X-Files. It's called Humbug, directed by Kim Manners and Darren Gordon. We will discuss next week, next Friday. Is it actually as good as people claim it is? Don't forget, leave a comment. Tell Jeremy how wrong he is about this episode down below.
Bring it on.
And we'll see you next Friday, everybody.